What's the fastest way to learn a beach volleyball spiking technique that works at a high level? Are there any shortcuts we can use, or are we basically doomed into months or maybe even years of hard work before we can find a good way to hit the ball? And lastly, what type of player should consider learning the wrist snap spiking technique before learning other ways to hit the ball? What's up, I'm Alex from LearnBeachVolleyFast.com. Today we're going to talk about everyone's favorite subject, which of course is attacking. And just to be clear right out of the gate, this video is number 5 in my spiking video series, which means that there are 4 videos before this, but I don't necessarily think you have to see those before watching this video. I think this one will make sense as a standalone also. But of course, the links to the other videos are going to be in the description below if you want to see them before or after having seen this video. So this is the type of video that I wish I would have been able to watch myself years ago when I decided that I was going to become a better beach volleyball attacker. Basically, I'm going to give you an overview of a couple different ways that you can approach the process of learning a better beach volleyball spiking technique. Just so that afterwards you can basically make smarter decisions and save a lot of time on your journey. Okay, so a couple of refreshers from previous videos. First of all, the wrist snap hitting technique is basically a mechanism of putting power into the ball with the help of extending your elbow and letting the wrist sort of snap on top of the ball as a result of that. It's a hitting technique that some professional players use, some professionals don't, they use other techniques, and some professionals use it sometimes. So there's not like a right or wrong way to hit, there's basically a lot of different ways to hit a volleyball, and this is simply one of them. And another refresher to an older attacking video on my channel, which hopefully some of you have seen. Basically, in this video, I talk about the spike being a long sequence of movements from the approach to the jump, to the arm swing, to the hit, and of course you land and stuff afterwards also. But regardless, I talked about problems in this chain of sequences and how I believe that if you have problems in the beginning of the sequence, these problems will sort of be sent forwards in the chain, which will then ultimately lead into problems in the actual hitting results. Not too different from, let's say, having a bad start of your day. Let's say you get up and you burn your breakfast the first thing you do, and then you have to go to work and you're hungry and you got late because of the burnt breakfast and you're angry and hungry and whatever, and then you start fighting with your colleagues and whatnot, and that leads you to having problems with your boss, etc., etc. I hope you get my point. If something bad happens at the start of a chain of events, there's a chance that something not optimal will happen also later in this chain. Okay, so I really used to think that this start from the beginning approach to learning good spiking mechanics was really the only way to go about things if you wanted to learn to hit technically well. However, then something happened. So long story short, I went on a several-year-long, almost insane look for better hitting techniques. This is not the topic of this video. I might make other videos later about it. Regardless, I did some math and I think I've hit over 40,000 hits with my right shoulder with different techniques. And somewhere along that journey, I actually made a huge discovery, which was that you can, instead of starting at the beginning, start at the end instead. And that is way quicker. So in order for us to understand how that could possibly be the case, we need to start looking a little bit deeper first at what I actually mean with the wrist snap spiking technique. So there's a few different ways that the body can produce power into the ball when you hit it, but here I will talk about 2 ones that are, so to say, good and people use with a lot of success. So the first one is the core powered, like how the core puts speed into the arm. There's this point here at the hip and this point here at the shoulder. When those stretch and extend from each other, there's like a rubber band effect, and that swings the arm forward basically. So I will call that a core powered hit from now on. Then we have the wrist snap mechanism, which is basically this elbow that extends and snaps the wrist on top of the ball, which can also give speed to the ball in itself. So what's important to understand here is that some successful attackers basically only use the core to produce power into the ball. Whereas some others only use the wrist snap to produce power into the ball, and then there's some people that use both. And all these ways are fully possible to do and can work well. If you want to go ultra nerd mode, we can even integrate the low versus high elbow video that I made before and say that we can do a core powered hit with a low elbow that also uses the wrist snap, as well as we can do a high elbow core powered hit that also uses the wrist snap. So there's a lot of possibilities here. But so that we can continue with the video, what I will from now on call the wrist snap spiking technique is the technique where you do use the wrist snap, but you don't really use the core for power in it. Your arm and shoulder makes the majority of the movement to make your elbow extend, which then makes the wrist snap. So why is this important for us to know if we should start from the end or the beginning when we learn to spike well in beach volleyball? Basically, what it comes down to is the length of the chain of events. So, the core powered hit, basically that means that you have to jump from the ground and load up the core so that that can then swing your arm, etc., etc. So if you do things wrong in the approach, you might not be able to jump so that you can load your core, so that you can swing your arm with the help of your core. So there's a long chain of events. However, on the wrist snap, the chain of events is very short. It's basically extend your elbow and lift your shoulder up so that the wrist then snaps. And the thing is that this shorter chain of events, we can then add on top of almost any type of approach and jump, just because it's not so dependent on the stuff that happens before. So really, I thought, for example, what if I wanted to hit lefty? Can I just learn the wrist snap with my left arm and just do the approach that I would do for my right armed hit, which means that I will jump goofy and then wrist snap with the left? And yes, it did work. It was easy. I just did it and it worked straight away almost. And people have so many different types of approaches, so many different arm things that they do before they jump, whatever. And basically, you can just add the wrist snap on top of that and it becomes a pretty effective hit. So yes, I will admit that the wrist snap spiking technique is not the one that produces maximum speed on the ball, but it allows you to hit the ball from a very high contact point and manipulate the angles of where you hit it very easily so that you end up surprising defenders. And this, combined with some attacking strategy, you can play high-level beach volleyball. If people are familiar with the Pareto principle or the 80-20 rule, basically get 80% of the results with like 20% of the work, this is, I believe, it for beach volleyball spiking. Except that I actually think you get like 85% of the results with about 5% of the work. So once I discovered this sort of different way of looking at how you can learn to spike well, my mind really started thinking like, what does this actually mean? Because there's a problem as a beach volleyball coach, which is that most people want to learn to attack better, and most people's biggest problem in attacking is that their mechanics are inefficient. But if you change mechanics in this like start from the beginning way, it's a very long and complicated process. Or well, very long is always relative. Like some people might think that this is a many months or years long project. For me, in my experience, in 3 to 5 hours of one-on-one coaching, a lot of huge changes can be made to a player that wants to approach the spiking mechanic change in the sort of start from the beginning way. But the problem is that most people don't go to one-on-one lessons, they only attend group lessons. So what does that mean if I have a 1.5 hour group lesson with 6 people and they want to learn to spike better? So 6 people, 1.5 hours, that means 15 minutes per person, but it takes 3 to 5 hours to make any significant change that really matters. It's just impossible math. So very quickly, if you attempt to do this as a coach, you end up in a shit show of a lesson where everyone's doing different types of approaches, they have different problems. You try to help someone, but then someone else asks a question, and you know, there's just no way you can handle that situation basically to get them to learn. Yes, you can stand there and show how you do it, but they anyway can't copy it, and they do wrong, and they have all these habits that their arms go everywhere, and you know, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it can really look like a shit show if you try to do that. So yes, some things unfortunately are probably just impossible to do, and one of them is to include 3 to 5 hours of learning into 15 minutes. But the funny but also sort of sad thing is that people then keep repeating this mistake. So basically they go to a group lessons, they think that they're gonna learn the secret to attacking, but there's just not enough time to go through everything that needs to be gone through. And then they don't learn it, and then next year they try again, they go to another group lesson, maybe this time it will work. Again, you cannot teach 3 hours and 15 minutes, so again they leave it without having learned how to spike well, and just repeat. I guess there's a Albert Einstein quote, which is, insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. Anyway, so what's so cool about the Wristsnap spiking technique is that I've several times been able to have a group lesson of 1.5 hours with 6 people, and actually within this session get everyone to massively transform their hit to something that works way better than they did before. And that's pretty cool. I've also sometimes given shorter, like 15-minute one-on-one sessions to people, and in those 15 minutes they also learn this technique. And from video 3 in this video series, I also know people have learned it from. They basically watched the video and then they went out and experimented a little bit, and all of a sudden they could do it. Note that this does absolutely not mean that I have, for example, stopped teaching the core-powered ways to hit a volleyball, or that I dislike it or anything like that. All it means is that I have reserved that to people that are invested enough, because I don't like lying to people. I don't like telling people that they can learn something that takes 3 hours to learn in 15 minutes. I would rather just be honest and say that in 15 minutes you can learn this. If you want to learn the other techniques, it's going to take a few hours. The exception is if I'm in a group lesson and someone is very close to being able to hit that way, like with the core, and I can quickly see that I can just tweak them a little bit to sort of get them to find that, then of course I'll go into that. But when someone needs like a complete rehaul, I just won't touch that in a group lesson. Anyway, this is also the reason for why in this video series I've talked about the Wristsnap technique and not some other technique. It's pretty cool, as I said before. Video 3 in this series, the Wristsnap video, is less than 13 minutes long, and that alone has made a lot of people learn this hitting technique. I will teach the other hitting techniques through this project as well, but they will be reserved for the people that are ready to do the work, ready to watch maybe some hours of explanations on how to learn it, and that will be reserved for the online courses. I might make a free video here and there that sort of touches parts of it, but for the complete overhaul, it's not going to be done in 13 minutes, so I'm also not going to attempt to do that. So there's one more big takeaway in this video. So let's say that you're a beginner or intermediate or even quite advanced beach volleyball player, and you really want to change your attacking technique to something better, and you're sort of a maximizer, kind of like I am, and you go like, I don't want to, you know, end up with that 80% technique. Like, I want 100%, I want all of it. And what do I say to you? This is what I wish someone would have told me years ago when I started this journey, which is that you go and spend that 15, 30 minutes or 1 hour or whatever it might take to learn the Wristsnap technique, so that you end up with a pretty damn functional technique that you can then use for playing, probably way better than you're doing right now. And then, even if you want to go the maximizer route, you want to do the start from the beginning, fix all the things, fix the approach, fix the jump, fix the how you load up the core after the jump, fix the core poweredness, fix the arm swing, fix everything, then actually what you can do is you can do this on the side of your games. You can do drills, you can slowly learn it, and add step on top of step on top of step on top of step, and do that work. But here's the thing, not many people want to, and I don't think it's really good either, to completely pause from beach volleyball for like a few weeks or even a few months or whatever it might be. I said it would take 3 to 5 hours, but ultimately it's good if these 3 to 5 hours are sort of spread out over some time. Anyway, I don't think it's good or that people want to completely stop playing volleyball for this time. So yes, you can do these things in parallel. You can keep playing games with the Wristsnap spiking technique during this time, at the same time as you learn an even better way to hit on the side. And then one day, when this even better way to hit is something that you can do in drills, is something that you can do outside of the court, then you decide, now it's time to integrate this into the game instead. And you learn to use that technique in all sorts of game-like situations, and you simply just start playing with it. And the funny thing is that if you go and learn the Wristsnap technique now, the Wristsnap mechanism is something that you will probably want to add on top of your core poweredness anyway, if you're a maximizer and really want the best. So all the work that you would be doing now to train the Wristsnap spiking technique is not going to be wasted anyway. And you're also going to have situations in the game where there is not time to do the core powered hit, and you will just need to go up and do the non-core powered Wristsnap technique. So basically, there is no time wasted taking this route. Either you learn the Wristsnap technique and then you're fine with that and it's super quick, or you learn the Wristsnap technique and then you learn all the other things, and that will anyway be a much more fun and enjoyable and probably quicker way to learn the other things than doing something else. So I hope this video has given you what I promised in the beginning, a way better overview of the paths forward that you could be taking, and that I've given you a solution that fits you, that will probably save you a lot of time. I also want to show you some examples of professionals that do hit with the Wristsnap technique, just so that you see that it's actually a real thing that professionals do and not just something that I came up with. However, because of copyright issues, I don't want to just put those examples into this video. Rather, in the description below there will be links to these, and of course if I find more examples over time I can even add them to this list of links, etc. So go down to the description below and have a look at those if you're like on the verge of like, should I do this or should I not? So seeing some professionals do that, at least I believe, helps with that decision. So this was part 5 in this spiking video series, and there's going to be at least 2 more parts in this series, and I'm going to tell you that the next one you will not want to miss. Maybe I'm crazy when I say that I think it will actually revolutionize beach volleyball coaching in the future, but we'll see. Maybe I'm not crazy. Maybe it's just what's going to happen. Anyway, it will be a bit of a deeper look into the other spiking techniques that you can use and that professionals use, so that you get an even better overview of what is possible for you. So all I'm going to say is don't miss that. And if you haven't subscribed to this channel yet, you should definitely do that now and click the bell notification button, because then you'll get notified. If this video was valuable, please share it to other beach volleyball friends that you have, because the more you guys share this video, the more it helps me grow this channel, and the easier it then becomes for me to create more of these videos for you guys. When I started playing this sport, my biggest frustration was lack of quality content and instruction that will like really go deep into details and explain all the ways that I could move forward, and like pros of that way and cons of that way, etc., etc. And it just didn't exist. But all that you guys do to help me grow this channel basically just helps bring this out into the world for you and also for future beach volleyball players. So please do that. Another thing that you can do to help me is, if there's any questions, any comments, any disagreements, especially the disagreements help me a lot to get better as a beach volleyball coach. Write them in the comment section below and throw them at me. Is there something that was unclear? Let me know. Is there something you disagree with? Let me know. You have some sort of proof for what I say is wrong? throw it at me and I'll have a look at it. I do have a lot of confidence with what I say and teach, but I also always want to be open-minded to that there might be more that I can learn. And I believe that a quality coach has that open-mindedness and that nobody knows everything about this sport. All right, that was it for this time. Thanks for watching and see you soon again.